You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. Today's episode is a special Multiplier Impact series, and I'm sharing a recent conversation with motivational speaker Nick Klingensmith. We talked self-leadership, living inspired, and the importance of a limitless mindset. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Today, I have a special multiplier impact conversation that I am sharing. I recently had the opportunity to speak with Nick Klingensmith, and Nick is the author of Through the Fire, the story of the 4-time cancer survivor, type 1 diabetic, and recovering alcoholic who became an obstacle course racer and defied it all. Nick is a motivational speaker, and the gems that he shared in this conversation were so much fun. We talked about living inspired, the importance of self-leadership, releasing the hold on limiting beliefs that you have for yourself, and the importance of dreaming and evolving even as we get older. And, of course, so much more. So, without further ado, please take a listen. Okay, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be so much fun. Can you just get started by introducing yourself in a way that you most like to?
Absolutely. My name is Nick Klingensmith. I'm a motivational speaker, and I am the 4-time cancer survivor, type 1 diabetic, and recovering alcoholic who became an obstacle course racer and defied it all.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's just a headline.
Right. Okay, so this series, and we're going to dig into that and unpack it a bit, but this series is about multiplying your impact. So when we're talking about your book, Through the Fire, who do you think you were most looking to help when you were starting that?
People who think they can't. And I know that's a broad term, but I talked about this the other day, that when we were asked as children, what do we want to be when we grow up? That is such a poisonous question. It should be, who do we want to be when we grow up? And to that answer, there should be limitless dreaming that we all tend to not do as much as we get older. We start to build these blocks around us for whatever reason or another. And for me, it had to do with my medical conditions and my mental attitude, mostly because of past behaviors. So for years, I was an active alcoholic, and I didn't realize the impact on my life and my decisions. But what I was doing by cultivating this victim mindset for myself that I had used to justify my drinking and behavior, I started to believe it. And I started to believe I can't run because of my knees anymore. I can't go do all this activity because I'm a diabetic. I can't. And I didn't want to, so it wasn't a bother to me, or at least I didn't realize it, the conflict that was inside. But I think that a lot of people get hung up in these doubts, in this bubble that we create for ourselves. And I do think there is this inert desire to achieve, to do more than we're doing, to actually get off the metaphorical or physical couch. I want to inspire people that they can. More than anything, I want them to know that whatever it is that limits them, it is still a choice and one that they can overcome.
Yeah, I think what you say is so important because I see this so often, right? Like as kids, you dream about like getting into college, and then, maybe you're getting married, and then you think about having kids. And then there just comes this time in our life when we stop thinking like things are possible. Like either I've gotten to be too old, or, or maybe now you have the kids and you think you can't because of the kids. But it's just so fascinating, like where our brain goes to. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, the doubt, we need to start doubting our doubt about ourselves and our abilities to do things.
Something, and I think you and I talked about this the other day too, but it goes a lot broader than what I'm about to say is, my doctors and I do not share the same goals. Their goal is to, have me live long, healthy. That's great, right? They would like it if I was on the couch forever, except for maybe 30 minutes walking around the block. They want me safe. That's not my goal. My goal is to live the life that I have. It's simply to live. And
Mhm.
discomfort is a part of life. And it's our normal, it's human beings' normal thing to seek safe ground, right? Like we want the path of least resistance. We want to avoid predators. Like these are things that have just been ingrained in our souls because we've been conditioned to survive. But to thrive is a choice. You have to make that decision to live beyond those means. And sometimes it comes with risk. Sometimes it comes with a little pain. I'm not suggesting people go out and just do really stupid things, but we should do a little bit stupider things than we're doing now.
Right, and who is it really to say, that it's stupid, right? It's gonna
Eh,
be like what we
100%.
call it is to your point, right? Doctors say one thing, you have another thing.
That's I mean, that's it. Like where I'm not afraid to take some risk in my life. And here's why. I know what it's like when you do. I
Mm,
know what life is like when I allow these limitations that I place on myself. And I know what life is like when I step beyond those limitations, sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. And either way, every time you move beyond that doubt, even just a little bit, you literally redefine the space that you live in. You open up your entire world just by
yeah.
stepping out of that.
I think that's yeah, I love that because I do think like discomfort is the currency to our growth and evolution, right? Like we have to go through that. And there are so many people that say like, "Oh, I feel stuck," but it's because they are staying in that comfort zone oftentimes, right? Which to your point, our brain loves it there. We want to be efficient, we want to be safe, like it all makes sense. So it's us being intentional with going out and trying new things and learning new things.
And also the thing that we talked about when we hit these, well, I don't have kids, but you get to this, I got the job, the house, the kids, like the spouse, like everything's check, 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 right? We achieve some sort of success in our life from by some definition or another, and then we instinctively start playing defense. We're afraid of losing everything that we have. We stop
Mhm.
exploring outside the cave. We stop trying to grow. We stop trying to develop. In fact, anything that threatens us, we become defensive about. Somebody then begins to, if you feel challenged or questioned, all of a sudden it's like, well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. And we get so entrenched on just protecting our egos.
Yeah.
That purpose is an evolve your purpose is an evolution. I didn't
Yes.
discover my purpose till 5 years ago, and I do believe it is a life purpose, but how it manifests will change over time. I hope it does.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I think that's so important, and I think sometimes people equate purpose to, like, their job, and that does not
Mhm.
have to be one and the same. It can change during whatever season you are in life, and it does not have to be your job.
I talked about it yesterday that our purpose is not our profession, and I have been down that road where I identified with my job, and if things are going well, you don't realize how toxic that is. Your entire validation is upon someone who you have a business relationship with. I don't care if you're friends with them or not. It's still like it's a business contract. It's not about who you are as a person. And when you equate your success and you really identify with your job and your career, when that changes, it throws you for a loop. It did for me. And I stayed there 1 year too long at the farm. The company began to change, and I felt like it was an indictment of me personally when it literally had nothing to do with me. And it took
Mhm.
some time to realize that even though I started by saying I'm a motivational speaker, that's not who I am. That's what I'm doing to make money now. And
Mm.
those aren't necessarily the same thing.
Yes.
When they are, life is awesome. But
Yeah. I think that's such a great point because I think also when we're talking about being willing to change and grow and get into an area of discomfort, oftentimes it might even be that things are going so well, right? That you don't like I shouldn't want more than this. Like I'm very lucky. I know I've gotten coached on that and also that my identity is around my job. So I think for some people it's often hard to leave because then who are you without that job and who are you without that company. I'll even I've been coached on the fact of like, well, my company pays my mortgage, and my coach is like, no, they don't just sit there and hand out money. Like you are the one working, right? It's that differentiation of you and what you do.
and actually, that's where the last 2 years where I was in logistics still. and I felt I was languishing because I knew this is what I knew my purpose is to inspire others. My purpose is to overcome every obstacle and inspire others that they can. And I want to do it the way that I'm doing it. However, for 2 years, I was in a job that I was no longer passionate about. And the way that I stayed focused and the way that I stayed good at it was I aligned my purpose. And it wasn't that the company was not paying my mortgage. The company paid me to do a job. What I do with that money is
Right.
what is my choice. And I wasn't working to build that company because I no longer wanted, that's not how I identified myself anymore. I wasn't doing it to support customers. I wasn't doing it to make sales. I was doing it because my purpose is to overcome every obstacle and inspire others that they can too. And that was my vehicle to get me there. I had opportunities with every action, every interaction that I had with another human being was an opportunity to help somebody. Everything was an opportunity to network, to learn something, to develop my own craft, and to support the lifestyle that I was living that helps me to achieve the goals and purpose in my life. And that's why when I almost regret saying I'm a motivational speaker because the fact is that itself is still just a vehicle for me of how I am going to deliver my purpose.
Yeah. And I think that brings me to the next question, which I think is so important because I think a lot of times people don't look at every opportunity like they want a perfect plan and everything has to be very strategic. And I will start when I have it together. But you talk about this idea in chapter 4 of day one or one day. Can you maybe discuss that a little bit and the mindset around that?
Absolutely. And I had languished for a while. I'm using that word a lot today. For about a couple years before. So actually, I'll even go back. In my 20s, I was a competitive beach volleyball player, and I kept in very good shape and very good aesthetic shape. And so it absolutely fed my ego, which also meant that when I became 240 pounds, my ego was shot and my self-worth was shot and my self-confidence was shot. And I kept saying, I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going to get back in shape for years. I suffered under the weight of changing. You can do that forever and say, one day I'm going to do this, or make today day one, whatever it is. And this is something I work with one of my clients right now because I'm coaching a couple people and we start with the limitless dreaming aspect. People who are like, I need a purpose or I'm stuck. And I'm like, okay, let's daydream the crap out of something. All right. And then we're going to break it down into one tangible action. And oftentimes, just like overcoming an obstacle, it's learning how to do it. So some people, it might be like, all right, step one, I want you to identify 5 mentors in that space.
Mm.
Step two for someone else is like they're trying to plan some trips. And I said, I want you to identify 3 potential dates. Ask that person when it's going to be. It's about taking that first action. I signed up for one race. All I did was say yes to a race when my boss asked me to do it. I did not expect to change my life, but I wanted a catalyst to get in shape again finally. And I said, all right, tomorrow's day one. This is it. We have to start. And you're right. The first step is always the hardest. And that's why most people don't take it.
Mhm.
But just start. Action inspires action, and action will always overcome doubt. It will always overcome fear. It builds momentum. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you have to learn, the skills that you have to acquire, or get this, the skills that you already have and haven't tapped into yet. Nothing gets accomplished on the couch. Now I'm using that as a metaphor. Just start.
Yeah. I think 2 things that you, mentioned there. Number 1, I think sometimes, especially high achieving folks, think that it needs to be all or nothing, and they think, like, a little is not enough, so instead we just, like, don't do anything, but Darren Hardy talks about this and the importance of the compound effect, just doing small things over time, lasting change, and I also think what you mentioned about building momentum, like, sometimes I talk to people and they're like, "I just don't feel motivated." I'm like, "Motivation doesn't just, like, come down raining from the sky," right? You have to take action, and then you start to feel motivated as you get going and build momentum. Like, it's not
Friction
just
causes the
something
spark.
all right? Yes. We need to start something to get motivated.
I actually say all the time that people are like, how do you stay motivated? I'm not. I'm
Right.
rarely motivated. Okay. I'm purpose driven. So I know what I'm going after. I rely on my priorities and discipline to carry me through the action. I make a plan every single day. And the reason I have to, the worst 15 minutes of my day are when I'm making the plan, because that's where all the anxiety lives. Once the plan is done, I just go through it. I don't feel like it. Who cares? Where in my plan did it say check your feelings? It didn't. It said make the next call. It said take the next action. When I wake up tomorrow at 4:30 in the morning, I'm not going to want to run. All right. I'm going to do my warm up. Well, I'm going to say my prayers. I'm going to get my coffee. I'm going to do my warm up. I'm going to take the dog for a walk. I'm going to come back and do drills, and I'm going to do the run because it goes step by step by step. And you know what? About a mile and a half into the run, I am going to be thrilled about what I'm doing. That's where my positivity, my meditation comes in, where all my morning videos and all the creativity happens.
Mhm.
One step in front of the other is the only way anyone's ever got anywhere, but you have to take the first step.
Yeah, I'm always like, as long as you feel willing, like you don't have to feel rainbows, daisies, and butterflies. But I couldn't agree with you more. I feel like I'll wake up and I like to work out, but there are mornings that I'm just like, come on. I have to tell myself, just get down there. You know, you're gonna feel better once you get started. And sometimes it's just a commitment of like, okay, I'll just do at least 10 minutes. And if I still don't feel like it, then I won't. But I always do. I always keep going because I feel so much better.
You know, the something is better than nothing mentality is 100% accurate. And one of the reasons that I'm very open on my videos, I post my obstacle failures, I post my slow run times, and I'm not David Goggins. I'm not saying everyone has to go run an ultra, but I'm not even saying you have to run, but you should do something. And people will sometimes not do things because they don't think it's enough. But if you're not doing 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes. I'll tell you what, it's not about right or wrong. Closer to where you want to be or further away from you want to be. Which way does that 5 minutes take you? Even if it doesn't have a lasting impact. And plus, 5 minutes can turn into 10 and builds momentum. It builds energy. It builds other practices. There's just, when you take positive steps in the right direction, even if you don't accomplish what you set out to, you still enact positivity in your life. You still practice discipline. Like all those things have a ripple effect that is exponential. Again, I did
Yes.
not sign up for 160 races. I signed up for one.
Yes. Yes. And I feel like to your point about the failures and stuff too, I think that's also important how we redefine or define, look at what a failure is, because it oftentimes, I think, holds people back because not only are they, is doubt holding them back, but the fear of failing and making it mean something so bad about them versus like it's also can just be a learning experience.
Failure, if you, it's like this. The question has sometimes been asked, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? I'm going to change the question though. What would you do if nobody else would know that you failed?
Yep.
Because I do think far too often, too many of us avoid failure, not because of the failure, but of how we might think that other people might think about us for failure. When in fact, the people who think that aren't thinking about when someone else fails because most of us are too self-involved to care. So,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
here's the thing, the people that are rooting for you to fail or will judging you fail, like forget them. Those aren't your people. The people who are supporting you, encouraging you, and cheering for you, number one, they don't see it as failure either. It's another attempt. Failure should not have such a hold over us. It has to be experienced. And if you continue to fail forward, another word for failure just becomes practice.
Hmm. And I think we often fail in advance by not going after those first steps because we're afraid to do whatever it is.
And you know what? I'm actually going to challenge that only for a thought, small semantic thought.
Yeah.
It's not that we fail forward and then don't do it. We quit.
Yes.
And there's a difference between failing and quitting. We didn't fail when we don't take the first step. We
Mm.
quit. Now, there's a lot of reasons I might fail something. All right. I might not have the skill. I might not have prepared enough. The sun might actually be in my eyes. Who knows? All right. There's a lot of reasons that I can fail. But when you quit, it is you. There's
Yeah.
no other explanation. There's no other excuse. You could say, I quit because, but it doesn't matter. You are responsible. You made the decision. You quit. And you're the only one who can make that choice. Quitting is a conscious choice to not move forward. And if we
Yeah.
fear failure and that's what prevents us, you didn't fail, you quit.
Yeah, that is so interesting. And isn't it interesting too, because we look at, as you're talking about, like when we think about other people and their ideas of failure, I think a lot of times we often even gauge our success based on what we think others think versus how much easier is it if we just start like going internally and figuring out how do we want to speak to ourselves as we have a quote unquote fail? And also, what do we want to define as success?
So, you know, it's funny. I've been talking about that a lot lately too. I attended a Franklin Covey time management seminar back in 2007. And in that, they had us do the be, do, have exercise. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be? What do you want to have? What do you want to do? And I kept that binder. All right. And by 2015, I had achieved most of the things that I had put in that list. All right. Like including like who I wanted to be, traveling to foreign country a bunch of times. I had been to Vegas 15 times in 8 years, like things that I put on the list, like small things like getting a new couch, surfing in Costa Rica, just whatever. So by every measurable standard in 2015, I was wildly successful. But then with that same logic, every year since then, I've been a massive failure. I've made more money. My career's progressed. I've changed careers. I've done different things. Success is a moving target, but that's not how we look at it. We look at it like it's a finish line. And so one of two things happens. Either we fail and get frustrated, or we succeed and become paralyzed. I don't talk about success anymore. As a matter of fact, when I'm almost done with the first draft of my new book, and I'm going to go back through it and make sure I don't use the word success in there like at all. The word I want
Okay.
to use is achievement. Because
Mm.
yes, I understand that we may kind of be talking about the same thing, but I feel that achievement is time based. It is a moment. It is something specific that you achieve forward. And because I don't know what the rest of my life is going to be like, it took me 45 years to realize that. I can't be planning all these other things, but I know that I'm achievement driven and I need to continue to achieve. And achievement isn't going to be granted to me by anybody else. I'm the only one who can determine, did I achieve X or did I achieve Y or did I not? And it's not based on somebody else's opinion.
Okay, I think that is so important because I know I've talked to people also about like, I started out as a rep, for example, and now I have kids. And like, what does it mean to be successful? Because that identity, right, as a rep was always successful. So I love that idea of achievement because that can for sure be looked at throughout a number of different lenses as to what that means. And when you talk about your seminar, it reminds me of the other question that I had for you because we had talked about the importance of visualization and you talk about writing down the different things you wanted to accomplish. Can you maybe now not everybody's going to be maybe training for a Spartan race and it's so funny because when I was telling my brother about you, he has actually met you because I think he's done like the Killington Beast East something. We can chat about that afterwards, but
Yeah.
I was thinking the importance of visualization just in any like career life point. Like what are your thoughts and maybe can you talk about how that has impacted you?
First, I think everybody should do a Spartan race, but this definitely applies to a broader thing. And I mean it. It was transformative in every way. And the sheer fact that there's somebody listening to this right now who thinks they can't, that's why you have to. Because when you can do that, what else can you do? That said, the first time I really understood the power of visualization was in 2018 when I was training for the Boston Marathon for 3 straight months, literally. Now, I grew up there. All right. I've been in the marathon a dozen times. I used to skip work and play hooky and go to the Red Sox game at 11 o'clock and then just go get drunk and celebrate the marathon runners. My family grew up on Heartbreak Hill. So I knew the area. My old sales territory was Framingham. So literally for 90 days, both on my runs in the morning and while I'm stretching at night, I visualized the course. I even watched like virtual course things on YouTube, all right? I wanted to just see it in my head and I would visualize me going through the course and I'm not just seeing it, all right? I'm listening to the crowds. I know what the air feels like. I am smelling the food at certain areas and I'm listening to the music at all the sidewalk parties and I'm just taking myself turn by turn. And as I got deeper and deeper into the visualization, I'm seeing how I feel at certain areas. I'm repeating mantras to myself. I'm literally experiencing the race. And every single time it resulted with me celebrating over that blue and yellow iconic finish line down Boylston. What I didn't foresee was what might have been the worst weather in the history of the Boston Marathon. It was 18 degrees, sleeting, torrential rain, 40-mile-an-hour headwinds the entire race. It warmed up to be about maybe 40 degrees by the end of the race. And I'm a slow runner. And because I hate wearing a lot of clothes and because I train in Florida, I was wearing a shirt that's probably thinner than the t-shirt I had on now And I had these like thin select gloves that later I had to get rid of because they were frozen. All right. At one point, I want to say it was maybe mile 15 or something. I was going up to an aid station and they're handing out gels. And I was like, open it. She's like, why? I'm like, 'cause my hands are frozen solid. I couldn't open the gel. I suffered so hard through that race. And it was also the greatest experience of my life. And when people ask me if I ever considered quitting, I literally did not know how. 90 straight days, I saw and felt this one outcome. Even though, again, I had hypothermia, I was absolutely miserable. I never saw another outcome. Quitting was truly not an option. There was no other way off of that course for me besides the finish line. The great power of visualization was unmistakable. So much to the point that every time I talk about it, I am kicking myself that I'm not doing it more in more aspects of my life. And I'll be honest, before I really realized that something, I thought I was powerful. And here's why: all the bad things that ever happened to me, I saw them happening too. So change the narrative. Why focus on all these bad things that might happen? Why don't I take that power and apply it to something else? This
Hmm.
morning when I did my morning prayers, I did a meditation and I focused on a call that I had a little while ago. And we booked a call. So like, did I manifest it? Did I make it happen? Maybe. But I was prepared to be at my peak state to handle it because of how I basically mentally trained for the event.
Yeah, we are. I love Robin from Peloton, and she always says, "What if we were willing to put that energy more into believing versus worrying?" Right? It's so easy for us to worry about things when we could also flip that narrative for sure.
I think that we do not give the little engine that could enough credit. And I was on a mountain race this summer in Indiana. Yeah, Indiana. And one of the obstacles is a sandbag carry where you take a 60-pound sandbag about maybe a quarter to a half mile loop. Only this one was directly on the face of the mountain. It was about a 35-degree incline. It was high, tall grass in June. It had been raining the night before, so it was like a steam bath. It was awful. Okay, to the point, and it was all wet and slippery, so you kept falling. And so literally this, I am, instead of carrying the sandbag on my shoulder and just trudging up the mountain, I am deadlifting it, putting it up like 4 inches in front of me, walking to it and doing that over and over again. And even though everything inside of me is saying, no, 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 out loud, I just said, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I might have had to say it 600 or 700 times to get through that exercise, but who was right?
Yeah, that is, yeah, such a great point. All right, we've talked a lot about doing and going after the dreams and all of that stuff. And I think it's also important. I just saw you recently talking about the importance of rest, but differentiating from the idea of laziness. And I think a lot of people who are listening probably do not allow themselves time to rest because they are always going, whether it be to impress other people, whatever it is, right? The busy badge of honor is by far worn very well to most of the people listening here. So, can you maybe talk a little bit about that before we kind of close up?
Yeah, and it's a thin line, right? And I think it's important to be very self-aware, and we should ask ourselves, like, we want to be careful not to judge and condemn because negative thoughts have negative impacts and they're also really easy and keep going. That said, it is one of the reasons to differentiate. The difference between rest and laziness is rest is intentional. So, outing myself, I did not wake up to work out this morning. I was lazy. I was comfortable in bed. I was in a dream. I was trying to get back to it. And I made a decision, although a half asleep one, to sacrifice my training for that. Now, a couple weeks ago, it was a Thursday afternoon and I was feeling it really heavy. I don't know why or what. And so I canceled a couple podcasts that I was going to be on that day. And I went and laid down. And the thing is, like, I could barely fall asleep because I felt guilty. I think when a kid fakes sick, it's like the worst thing they can ever do to themselves because then they never know how to just be sick. And what I didn't realize is I was coming down with something pretty severe. I just didn't have the other symptoms yet. And so I was tortured inside. Am I being lazy or am I resting like I'm supposed to? Well, I found out the hard way that I needed the rest. And realized, especially as an adult, that like taking care of yourself medically and physically is not something to apologize for. If you don't protect the rescuer, if you don't protect number one, it really doesn't matter much what number two is. So rest is intentional for whether we're training physically. working. I used to encourage people. I was absolutely a slave driver of a boss. All right. Like I wanted high tempo, high activity all the time, unless you needed a break. And I wanted you to get up and go away and take a break. What I didn't want you to do was start chatting around with three other people who were still in the grind. That's laziness. All right. When you just don't want to do your responsibility, that's being lazy. I told you earlier about how I make the plan and I just go through it, right? Because that's not being, I can feel lazy and still do the work and it's still going to be more beneficial. But there are times where I'm going to say, I need a rest. I might be in my LinkedIn messages all day. And for the first hour, I might be able to bang out 20 messages in an hour. On the fifth hour, if I realize I bang out two in an hour, it's just time to rest.
Mm.
Rest is intentional. We have to hit reset. We have to fill the fuel, and the fuel sometimes is rest. And by the way, if Netflix and chilling on the couch on social media is your thing, do it. Plan it, though. Don't let it be the excuse for why you don't go live your life. But there's nothing wrong with hitting reset and seeking some mental and physical comfort from time to time if that's going to help you be at your best the next day. So I just believe there's a big difference between that intentional and then when we let excuses get in the way.
Yeah, I love that, and I feel like that kind of also brings us a full circle as far as, like, again, being intentional and paying attention to what it is that you want in your life, and paying attention to, like, your physical being and also your mental, spiritual, like, whatever that is, like, more of us doing the things that we need to do in order to achieve, right?
When the name of my company is Stride Motivation, and there's a couple reasons for that. One of which is just that my last name is obnoxious and it's easier to find me on Instagram with Stride Motivation. The second part, though, is it's motivation to hit your stride. So I even told this to somebody yesterday I might do some coaching with, and I said, literally, if you said that you want to be the world's best couch potato, then my job is to help you get there. It's not. I'm I'm not trying to force anyone to make changes. If they need a change, I would love to be the catalyst to help them get there. And the thing is, everybody does at one point will need a change because everything else is changing.
Mm.
So it doesn't mean you always have to change who you are, but if you don't make changes, you will fall behind. And that's where we feel a lot of that conflict, that tension inside is when we refuse to change. And so we don't want other things or other people to change. It's literally trying to stop a train in its tracks, and it's just not going to happen. And so it's about just finding out how to be the best version of who you want to be.
Oh, I love that, and before the last question, I think that part about change and other people changing is also being okay when you are the one changing and other people don't want you to be changing because they're not doing the work.
I've been very fortunate that for different walks of my life, there have been a couple of my closer or best friends that have sort of gone with me, if you know what I mean. Like we're still very close. And even the ones I don't talk to every time, like every day, all the time, we pick up where we left off. But most others, you move on in your life. You've got different phases. This isn't like the cartoon or like the TV we saw as kids where somebody grows up in the same hometown forever and nothing ever changes. Like, I don't know about you, but I've lived in three different states. I don't know how many cities. We have different jobs. I don't have my favorite blankie anymore. Like, it's great that you can stay in contact with certain people, but there are a lot of relationships that I'm not as close with as I was 7 years ago because this is a big part of my life now. And that's okay. Like I forgive them, it's just like I hope they forgive me. And there are people who are going to be threatened by your progress. And well, quite frankly, they're not your circle. They're not your friends. They were your friends, but they're not anymore. And we have to be okay with that. Doesn't mean we have to go tell somebody off, but it's not their life. Their decisions should not affect us. And if they support you, you know who your fans are. And the rest of them, well, if they want to catch up, I'll be here.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Don't drag them along. They're invited, but we don't drag them along. I love
Absolutely. I'm
that.
not judging them for not wanting to do, their thing, but I can't let we're growing. This is a growing circle. We're elevating. That's always going to be the case. And you can come for the ride or I support you in your life by I'm going to go live my own.
Yes, I love that. Now, we talk about multiplying your impact and all the work that you have done. Is there a person or a thing, like something that stands out for you who has really made an influence and been the biggest impact in your life?
Oh, that is a good one. I could go in a lot of different ways. You know, I talk about it enough and I think I just need to make it official that I'm going to say my dad.
Mm.
And and here's why. Couple reasons, all right? He's got 4 decades of sobriety. I don't know if I get to where I am if he wasn't the role model for me. And not just that, oh, I see he got sober. He lives his life. Like he can go to any restaurant, any bar, any concert. He's bought me rounds back in the day when I was drinking. When he's had no money, he was happy. He just builds great quality relationships everywhere he goes. He's always had this great attitude. And I'm like, why would I not want that? But I've also seen him at some of the darkest of times of the way life can hit, and he just refuses to quit. I used to joke that my dad only taught me 2 lessons in life. One was never run out of toilet paper, and the second was document everything. Yeah, he said that before 2020, by the way. So he was like, call him
He
Nostradamus.
was a trendsetter.
But it's not true. My dad taught me how not to quit. And the thing is that as a course of his own recovery too, like I don't know if he say his purpose is this, but it's what he does. He's constantly focused on helping others. It's always been his attitude. He's open and willing to be vulnerable and always looks for the best in people. And I mean, he's leagues ahead of me as far as that's concerned. So I think I just need to be mature enough now to finally say that, yeah, that person is my dad.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great I love that. All right. Now, I know you mentioned Instagram and LinkedIn. Are those the best ways for people to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is hop on my website, stridemotivation.com, and book a call. I would love to connect. But that said, I am everywhere available on social media at Stride Motivation.
And we'll put all the links in the show notes also. This has been so much fun. Is there anything else that we've missed before we close it out?
Oh, we could go for hours. So
I
maybe
know,
we'll just,
I know. I feel like I was like, I don't know if I should ask this question because I definitely think we could.
I will just say this, and I want to close with this all the time too, is that I tell people to live inspired. And, we mentioned about motivation earlier, right? Those words get used a lot, but inspiration is everywhere. You just have to look for it. And if you want inspiration, inspire yourself. Do something inspiring. Just do something you think you can't do. Anything. I'm not saying you have to go climb a mountain race, but go take a 5-minute walk, drink an extra cup of water, call somebody, let somebody into traffic, do something for someone else. Look around at the humanity that surrounds you. Get out of the dredges of negative conversations on social media. They don't serve a purpose at all. Positivity is everywhere. Choose to look for it.
I love that. That's a great way to end. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, wasn't that great? I am telling you, I could have kept talking for hours. That stuff is my jam. I love that he is multiplying his impact by inspiring others, and I hope that something landed a little differently for you today. Maybe hearing this sparked the voice in your head to tick up a bit on the volume. You know the voice, the one that says, maybe I can do that, or maybe I should toss my hat in the ring, or maybe I will have that difficult conversation after all. Whatever it is for you, friends, tomorrow is not promised. Don't wait to get moving on your dreams. The perfect time is right now. You will figure out the rest as you go. Pretty sure you always do. Okay, don't forget to follow Nick. I will have all of the links in the show notes. That's what I have for you today. Make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.